Hi, everyone, and before we get into today's episode, I have a quick message from Judy Human.
Hello, my name is Judy Human. I'm here today to encourage you to please take your COVID vaccine. And if you have friends and family that haven't, please encourage them also. COVID is to be taken seriously. In addition to taking the vaccine, please use other protective methods. Wear a mask, use gloves, and sanitize frequently. If you need additional information and you live in Eastern Oregon, you can contact EOCIL. Thank you, and protect yourselves and the community.
All right. So, hi, and welcome everyone to the EOCL podcast. I'm your host, Amador Perez, and today I'm sitting down with Sheila Single. She is a member of COPE's organization based out of Hermiston, and she's here to tell us her experience with being incarcerated and what that process was like for her and all the trials that she had to face to get to where she is today. Sheila, if you'd like to introduce yourself and kind of just tell us kind of like the backstory and how you ended up being incarcerated.
Sure. My name's Sheila. I'm 57 years old, and my backstory is I grew up between the Oregon coast and La Grande in Eastern Oregon. A lot of heritage, a lot of small town, simple living, and my mother raised me and my sister by herself, and at the age of 10, I think was the first time I ever took a drink. And then I'm pretty sure it was 16 that when I moved out of the house because of the severity of sexual and physical abuse from a stepfather, I left on my own. And at that time, it was an immediate plunge into that freedom, right? And so, every weekend, after school, we were drinking, we were experimenting with drugs, and you name it, it kind of came my way, whether it be eating mushrooms and smoking pot or doing cocaine or taking too much acid. I mean, there was just a bunch of crazy insanity, and my drinking was immediately insane, and I would black out constantly. I had no control. It was it's hereditary, I should say that. Both sides of my family, severe alcoholism for generations, and so I was already messed up before I ever took that first drink, right? So when I started drinking more, it just became crazy. I don't remember a lot of things. People would have to tell me what was going on, but because of my alcoholism, the fact that drugs, and I should say amphetamines, any kind of speed, would give me the ability to drink more, because it wasn't necessarily about passing out and doing that. It was like showing everyone that I could drink just like them, because I wanted to be a part so much. And so the insanity progressed within my life, and I went into Alcoholics Anonymous in 1990, not thinking that I was an alcoholic, only thinking that I needed to stop drinking for a short period of time and to figure out how to drink like a lady. It was kind of crazy that I thought that, but that's what I thought. And I ended up staying in the program dry, never worked a step, never got honest, never got a sponsor, or at least I never used one. And I relapsed. And then it was a cycle of 22 years of progression. The insanity of my disease, which was addiction, which was running away from life. I mean, that's why I did the things I did, because I was so afraid and traumatized by the experience when I was younger, that it was just a snowball effect. And every time I would pick up the drink, I would pick up the drug, and it would just start where I left off. And the insanity just got bigger and bigger and bigger until the economy crash in 2008 hit, and because of my insecurities and my neurotic behavior, I started drinking heavily and started using meth like crazy. And it did not take but maybe a couple of months before I got hooked up with some people, some very big people from Las Vegas, and I ended up selling meth in Billings, Montana. I became one of the largest distributors for them in Montana, and it didn't take long to get there. It was a matter of 2 years, and I was in full blown insanity, running from the law constantly, getting picked up for violations on traffic and anything. And they knew me. That's the crazy thing. But what the insanity of all of that was is that I thought that I was okay. I thought I thought I was above the law, right? It's like, you're not doing anything. It's okay. They don't know. They don't know, right? You're a good girl. You've done nothing wrong ever your entire life, right? The only thing I ever got in trouble for was a DUI, and I think that was like in 2000. So after my co-defendant killed somebody in self-defense, the crazy lifestyle just became so severe that I couldn't handle it anymore. He went to prison. My parents wouldn't have anything to do with me. My daughter wouldn't have anything to do with me. Everybody shut me out of their life, and I begged for death. I had no soul. I was a complete mess. I mean, there isn't words enough to express how dead I truly was. And I begged for death. I said, God, you need to, if you're there and you care, you just need to kill me. Just take me out. I'm done. I can't do it anymore. But obviously that didn't happen because here I am, right?
Yeah, well, thankfully that didn't happen.
Right. So, and that was in 2010. And because of the lifestyle and the people that I was associated with, I ran. And I ran for 2 years. I was not only afraid of them, but I was afraid of the FBI and the DEA, and all the rest of the task forces that were after me. And finally in 2012, it was in April, my daughter called, and of all things, my daughter had worked for the state attorney's office in Tampa, Florida. And she said, Mom, the FBI is looking for you. I'm like, wow. And I said, okay, I guess it's time to stop running. And so I called, and they came, they arrested me. And then courts released me to go back to Montana. So when I went into the court to get arraigned, I didn't realize how severe this was, because they didn't catch me with nothing, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I escaped the whole possession thing, right? I mean, this was my mentality, right? They don't have anything on me. They have nothing on me. So I was like, it's okay. No, my indictment was like this thick. It was insane how big it was. There were so many people talking about me, right? And I had no idea what conspiracy to meant until an attorney said, you know what, you're really screwed. And I went, okay, great.
And
fear.
What kind of led you to turn yourself in? Was it just that call from your daughter that made you want to do that? And
so it was from my daughter constantly saying, you know, Mom, you really need to take care of this. Because prior to that phone conversation, I'd gotten a couple of calls, like one at my parents' house, and it was from the FBI. They wanted to have a conversation with me about the people that I was under from Las Vegas. And I was freaked out. I was like, I'm not talking. I don't want to die. They'll kill me. Right. And so that's another reason why, but there was another time too, that I think that they called and talked to me too. And I said, I just have nothing to say to you people. I walked away from that. And so when my daughter did call and she said, Mom, they really want to talk to you. They don't want to do anything. They just want to they just want to interview you. And I'm thinking, no, they're gonna
Yeah.
arrest me. So I think it was just that I was sick and tired of running, because I would stay somewhere for 3 to 6 months and then I'd pick up and go again. And I was doing that for like the 2 years prior, and I was tired. And and to be completely honest, I really truly believe that God just gave me the confidence to swallow that fear for that brief moment and say, okay, this is where I'm at. And they came and they arrested me and took me to county, and then yeah, and then all of that.
Yeah. And then how was it? How were you then treated then when once you did turn yourself in and they got to you and they made contact? Was that a pretty like scary situation? Were they intimidating or were they
No,
just
no,
someone extending their hand?
they were so very nice. They were respectful. And I mean, here I was in a neighborhood, a little residential area, and I was worried about what my neighbors were, thinking. And the owner of the property lived right next door, and it's like, oh my gosh, I was concerned about them handcuffing me and taking me out and putting me in a car. But they said, we can't let you just go sit in the car. We have to handcuff you. And I bet they were respectful about it. I understood, as tears are coming out of my eye, because I'm scared to death. I don't know what to expect. But they were very respectful, and they talked to me. They were kind the whole way, because we went from Coos Bay to Eugene. So, that was a few hours of sitting in the back of that vehicle.
No, just because I asked, because you can go online and you can see a bunch of stories of offenders are offered the chance to turn themselves in, that they're met with such negativity and hostility once they do. They go in, turn themselves in, and they're mistreated, they're abused, they're told to wait in holding cells forever and ever. They're not allowed to speak to anyone. They're not offered the rights that they deserve. And, you know, for a lot of people who maybe don't commit such severe crimes might look away and not want to turn themselves in, just for that simple fact that what if they tried sticking something else on me? What if they try adding charges to my record? What if they try to, you know, do me wrong by turning myself in? Because you see a lot of cases online and you can read a lot of papers where you see that happen, where people are just completely ignored as a human and just treated as another number in the system.
Right,
Like, how long can we put this person away for
right.
doing a not so severe crime? Or it's nice to hear that you had a somewhat of a good experience then, where they didn't really try to stick you with an abundance of things that you didn't do, or they didn't try to like intimidate you in a way that made you feel uncomfortable or just unsafe in that situation, especially with people who are um part of the government and are meant to
Hmm.
protect us, right?
So I will say that my experience was that of respect. For the most part, there was a few times throughout um, transport and all of that kind of stuff that that I felt uncomfortable. But the only time that I really was disrespected was when I was being interviewed by the U.S. Marshals, and all of that, for my co-defendant when he had killed somebody in self-defense, and the fact that he was also part of that drug ring. So, and they had not caught me yet, or I had not been implicated in anything at that time. And so my experience being interviewed in a little room,
Yeah.
um, I was um, I was offended by the way that they treated me and the things that they were saying about me, because they didn't know anything about me, but maybe they did. I don't know. But when you're high and you're and you have entitlement issues and you think you're, Miss Goody Two Shoes, then
Yeah.
so, but my own experience, I did not meet those FBI agents were pretty cool. I mean, and even checking me into Eugene County was wasn't bad. You know, the fact that they locked me in a holding cell overnight, that freaked me out. There was no windows, no contact with anybody for 24 hours. And I seriously was freaking out. I couldn't stop bawling profusely. I mean, I'd never been in trouble a day in my life. And I mean, and that right there, just knowing that I'd never been in trouble a day in my life, to, you know, to having gone into the drug ring the way that I did, is like so severe. That just tells you how great the progression is of addiction, and how crazy. And meth, just once, that stupid cliche, don't try it, not even once, can I tell you, I never believed it, but it's true. One time just made me feel like, oh, I can handle anything. And then it just became my entire life. I mean, I was so addicted that I couldn't stop for days. And I mean, I would be up for days. And finally, when I get so spun, I would say, okay, you're going to have to learn how to sleep for 4 hours, or you're going to have to learn to eat something so that you can maintain some kind of normality, because you are just a hot mess. And because of that, my brain focused on trying to be normal in every way I possibly could. And it was just day after day after day. There was just, and I had a plethora of it because I was, you know, because I was hooked up. It was just crazy how much dope I did.
Yeah, for sure. And then, so once you finished talking about, what were the counts that they charged you with, and kind of what was that trial process afterwards, like speaking with the judge, getting in front of them?
Sure. So my arraignment, they let me go on my own recognizances, and I had to find another attorney out of town, because everybody, there was lots of people on that indictment, and so there was no attorneys in Billings left. So, but I found a really good one, and he was really honest with me and said, you know, Sheila, your offense, which is conspiracy to distribute 500 grams or more of methamphetamine. And he said, your crime is 10 years to life. And I went, holy crap. I mean, my heart sunk. And when I say that still today, I go, wow, right? And I just looked at him, I said, that's crazy. He said, don't worry. He was like the coolest attorney. He just said, don't worry about it. People like you every day go to prison. You're going to be fine. You've never been in trouble a day in your life. This is the only time you've been in trouble. You can do 10 years standing on your head. And I went, no, I can't. But the process in that, I got to be free until, you know, it was time to go in front of the judge. I went in front of the judge. I pled guilty after the fact, right? So after my arraignment, I told my attorney, I said, listen, I don't want to stay out here for 3 or 4 months, try to find a job just to pay my bills, and lie to somebody about whether or not I'm going to stay somewhere when I'm really just going to go to prison. You know, nobody's going to hire me knowing I'm going to go to prison. So
Yeah.
I said, let's just tell the judge I'm guilty, and let's just wait for my sentencing, and I'll go start serving my time in county. And that's what I did. So at the end of June of 2012, I pled guilty, and I went to a federal holding facility over in Wyoming until it was time for me to get sentenced.
Okay.
And in that, can I tell you, entitlement issues for somebody who's never been in trouble. It was the worst experience trying to deal with catty women, you know, and it was just a big open place, and you only got to go outside one hour a day and walk in a concrete circle. I hated that. I hated every bit of that. But the one thing that saved my insanity being locked up there is that I was in a room that they call the garage. So there were several bunk beds in there, and there was just a whole 3 or 2 whole walls full of windows where you could literally see the post office, the park and across the street at the gas station and the main street in town. So I literally sat on the top of my bunk, and that's where I sat the whole entire time, looking outside, trying to keep myself sane, because I couldn't go outside. I couldn't see the trees otherwise, So I don't know what it was, but and I've never been claustrophobic or anything like that, but it was just too much. So, and in all of that, my attorney had said as well, start, looking at what you're going to say to the judge, write a letter to the judge. And if you want, you can have people who know you and who care about you, write letters to the judge too. And so that's what we did. I got a hold of even my ex-husband and all sorts of people, and they wrote letters to my judge. And then on day of sentencing, got transferred back to Yellowstone County. And I went in front of the judge, and usually they don't let like family members go sit in the court, but they let my mother and father sit in the courtroom. And the fact that my mom and my dad were actually supporting me, and my daughter and people in my life were supporting me, because I just fessed up and said, you know what, I did this. I'm not gonna lie. I'm not. I did this. And they started supporting me in any way that they possibly could. It made me feel good.
Did you feel any time before then that they weren't supportive?
Oh yeah, no, they weren't. My parents opened the door 1 inch on Easter Sunday and said, "You are not welcome in our home. You need to leave the premises." And they slammed the door in my face.
Okay.
And that was in 2010. So that was before I started running. And my daughter, she said, I can't talk to you. I can't do any. I mean, it was just nobody was in my life, because they all knew what was going on, and nobody wanted to have anything to do with me. They wouldn't answer the phone. They wouldn't help me. They wouldn't do anything, And so once I just fessed up to everybody, it became a little bit easier. So anyways, my parents got to be in the courtroom, and the judge said that, I made my statement in front of him, and he gave me 48 months. And I get a little weepy-eyed about that, because 10 years to life is a big deal, and to only get 4 years and 5 years probation was a gift. And I know for a fact that God had a plan for me. There's a reason why I didn't go away for as long as a normal sentence would be.
Yeah. And do you believe that you got that sentence because you had all those family members write letters to your judge, because you were willing to plead guilty? Or how did you feel that his decision was based off of?
So there were several things. I believe that it was a combination of all of them, as well as the fact that I had never been in trouble ever. And he also, because my co-defendant was who he was, and he was a 3 strikes you're out person, the judge thought that I was influenced by him, even though I had stated in my speech to the judge that it was my decision to do the things I did, and that my co-defendant came along with me. He still looked at it in the way that he did. And then all the people, and he did comment on all the letters that were sent, and the fact that I'd never been in trouble before. So I think it was a huge combination of all of those things, and me just fessing up and saying I did it. When it's true, it's true. This is my statement today. If it's true, it's true. I'm not going to lie about it. I'm not going to hide from it. If it's true, it's true. And people just need to get real about it.
So you got your 48 months in jail. What was
Yeah.
your immediate thinking after that? Besides, being grateful that it wasn't the 10 to life, did you kind of mentally prepare yourself for that transition now?
Yeah, so I was like, at first, I wasn't sure about how the incarceration was going to look, but my attorney had said to me, listen, they said that because you're not a flight risk, because I turned myself in and all of this stuff, never been in trouble, that they would give me the opportunity to go to a farm or a annex or a whatever, we called it Club Med, right?
Yeah.
Where you're on the outside of an FCI with no fences, and you're working, and you're working the facility and doing all of that. So you had a little bit more freedom. So so when he told me that, he says you get a job, and he explained this all to me. You get a job and you just do your time, and he says it's not a big deal. You can exercise, you can, do whatever you want. I said, okay. So he kind of eased my mind into what to expect about going, and especially if I was going to an annex where there was a little bit more liberal, liberties
Yeah.
there, then I was secure in how it was gonna work. And the process, though, sitting in getting transferred to another county where I had to sit for 48 hours in a cell where I didn't get to see any sunlight or go outside. I had to sit in the cell for 48 hours before they would put me in the general population. That was horrific. It was like mentally tormenting to me. I was emotional wreck, and I will admit that I cried the whole entire time because I couldn't see outside. I had no daylight. I had nothing. It was just a cell for 48 hours. And they'd give us our food underneath the door. And it's like, oh my gosh, this is wretched, right? This is like
Yeah.
the jail that, I was afraid of. And here I am.
Yeah.
But then once in, general population, it wasn't so bad, but I still didn't get to see daylight. And that was in Great Falls, Montana. But then my first experience with going on a federal flight, that was probably so surreal. I sit back and I can't help, and I know the severity is what it is, but I mean, looking back at this, I was so scared. There were so many US Marshals with huge guns. I mean, all of them around this monstrous airplane. And there is people in lines getting ready, getting checked to get onto these planes. And there is no separation, right? I mean, you did get the men were in the back of the plane and the women were in the front of the plane, but you were mixed with everybody,
Mhm.
everybody. And there was even people that were locked in cages on that plane. I mean, I was a little nervous about it. Yeah, that's how I traveled every single time with the feds, was
Wow.
through an airplane. Yeah, and so we left Great Falls and we landed in Las Vegas, and we went to a transfer station outside of Las Vegas. So we got on a bus and went to that place, and we had to get all checked in and go through everything um, and get showers and do all of this stuff. And some of the most horrific experiences, I will say, is during my transportation, because here you are, you're shackled, right? Your feet and your hands, and you're shackled, and you're eating a bunch of garbage because that's all they give you: sugar, 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 some bread, some bologna or whatever. I mean, it's just to appease you while you're on this airplane. And to get up and to go to the bathroom and try to go to the bathroom when you're shackled was ridiculous. I mean, if you're a guy, that's one thing, but being a woman, trying to, it didn't work. Okay. And so I tried my very best to not drink anything when I had to fly, and because it was horrible. And And then when you get into these transfer stations to get all checked in, you had to go in, you had to take a shower, you had to bend over, you had to spread your butt cheeks. I mean, that was like the most degrading thing. I think I understand that that's what they have to do. And I'm not putting it down, but I'm telling you that I felt so horrible by doing that. I've never experienced somebody else looking at me like that, right? And it was a female, so I mean, they were respectful in that manner that a female looked at a female and a male looked at a male. But there was some sensitivity in regards to holding everything while I'm on a plane and then not being allowed to use a restroom until I got in the shower and it was too late. So humiliation, that was probably the worst experience I've ever had in my entire life. But it also strengthened me to be okay with the rest of the embarrassment, right? Because I was modest, and to have to be naked in front of somebody and to do all of that in front of somebody, it was very trying to me.
Did you ever feel like you could voice your concerns in that situation, or did you see anyone voice their concerns and then have it either be, you know, actually taken in or just disregarded completely?
So the woman who had looked at me, who was there to inspect me, said, "Don't worry, you're not the only one." She said, "It's okay." I said, "No, it's not okay." But, you know, so I mean, she tried to make me feel better, which was nice that she tried, but it didn't change the fact that I was humiliated. So
yeah, wow. Yeah, especially just because that could ruin someone's, like, I don't know, self-confidence, and
it's traumatic. It was traumatic. Yeah.
causing a lot of trauma then for
Yeah.
there on out, especially having to face through that. So you land, they search you, they do everything. What happens after that?
So then we all got checked into our pods and got assigned, you know, our sleeping areas and all our blankets and all the clothes and blah blah blah, and then told when we could purchase commissary. And we sat there in the transfer station probably for a little over a month. And in that time, they gave us a physical. We went to the dentist, and we just hung out in this big open space, you know, open toilets, open showers. I mean, everything was open. You had to just do it all in the open. And I was just mortified again by the fact that I had to, you know, just be in the open with everybody. But I mean, I understood that, but the whole experience with me and my modesty and my insecurities, and the fact that all that prisons are, you know, you better get over it because this is your life now. You belong to us, right? And it took a lot of prayer and a lot of asking help. And I've always been a communicator, so you know, I would talk to other inmates, prisoners, and say, you know, how does this make you feel? How does this, you know, and sometimes I would get, you know, some really good advice about what to think or how to, you know, turn my brain off from that I'm embarrassed about myself kind of thing. And some of those things did work. And I think mostly that just like in society, practice makes desensitization, right? So the more I did it, the less it affected me.
Yeah.
So I just got used to it.
Okay. So did you see any, I don't know, did you see any unsafe, like, were you ever placed in an unsafe situation while you're in that general population, like where the officers or the patrol that were patrolling, were they
No.
all female? Were they, you know, making sure everyone was behaving in a way, make sure things were kept to code, like cleanliness wise, everything was sanitary? What did you see any of those problems during that?
No, they scrubbed that place every day, every single day, and they walked around, they talked with us, they let us change the channels on the stupid TVs.
Mhm.
I mean, I really didn't have any problem my entire time with any officers. I mean, none. They were all very respectful of me, but I believe that when you show respect,
Yeah.
you get respect, right? And so I think that it's important that that your viewers know that when I chose to say that I was guilty and I was waiting for sentencing, I chose to change the way that I did things because my life was a nightmare. And it was all because of the choices that I made. Every single choice I made was a choice that brought me farther into a hole. So I had to come to a conclusion that I didn't know how to live life, right? And
Yeah.
so the only way that I was going to get better was to do something different. And that meant that I had to do absolutely everything they wanted me to do without complaining
Mhm.
because I needed to learn how to be humble, right? And I think that my entire experience in prison made me very humble.
Oh, well, that's good to hear. And how long did you said you spent a month there in that transition
Yeah, yeah.
portion, and then from there, where did they send you off to?
So then we flew from there to Greenville, Illinois, to the prison there. It was I believe it was a medium. The FCI was a medium men's facility, and the camp was women, and it
Okay.
was yeah. And I didn't like that place. It was very well established, and there was some people that were just really cruel, and it was inmates that were cruel. And my insecurities just really got the best of me, and I I didn't have friends. I mean, I had a couple of people that had been, incarcerated for quite some years that kind of looked out after me. And I had a bunkmate that did the same. But there was a lot of messed up young women um, that recidivism was their middle name, and they were just mean to me.
Wow.
They would just say horrible things to me and make crude remarks and glare at me, and it was just horrible. And I was there for like 5 months
Wow. And what
before
would you say
they
was the demographic that you saw in there? Was it mainly younger women, older, or
there
kind
was
of
a
a
good
mixture of
blend.
everything?
There was a mixture, yeah. And there was a lot of homemade alcohol, and there was drugs that were in there if you wanted cigarettes up the yin yang. There was so much stuff. If you wanted it, you could definitely get it in there. There was, of course, a lot of sexual behavior going on, and all of that stuff just really made me feel very uncomfortable because I was trying so hard to um, to live a different life. And while the drugs and the alcohol did not tempt me, it was just being subject to all of that when I had made a conscious decision to change my life, right? It was an emotional thing, and I had to fight with myself constantly because the prison system says that you're not supposed to fraternize, right? And you're not supposed to do this. You're not. So I read all the rules. I mean, and I made sure I read all the rules because I didn't want to screw up.
Yeah.
And then to see everybody else not following the rules, it really messed with my head. But I knew, I mean, I couldn't tell on them. I mean, who would then? It would have been worse, right? And
Yeah.
so I sat with that crazy crap in my head, and getting more resentful, and then and just I just went crazy. I was just going crazy. I just couldn't deal with it. But I threw myself into reading. So I read the Bible, which was a recovery Bible. So it had the 12 steps all throughout the Bible, and so I could find applicable passages in the Bible that were about resentments and all of that. So it helped me. And I thank the Lord that I didn't have to be there but 5 months, and that they transferred me to another place. So
yeah, no, but and so in those 5 months, you said there was a lot of you saw contraband in there. Was there anything
yeah,
done by the the police
when
or
they would find it, yeah, and they did shakedowns all the time. They
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 did
did
all the time?
shakedowns. Yeah, they did. So, but it just depended on what pod you were in,
But
but
there was always some form of narcotics always circulating through
yeah,
the
there was
cells.
always something. Yeah.
What was the biggest thing that you saw in there that people were doing? Was it pills, prescriptions,
It was
or
some kind of pills, and then they were making their own alcohol, because the people from the kitchen were making alcohol. So, and then cigarettes. Cigarettes were huge. They were everywhere. I didn't even know. $5 a cigarette? That's crazy. And that was back, in 2012.
yeah, no, because it reminds me because I believe it's almost been 2 weeks, but I went to Montreal for a conference, and during that conference, I attended a session for a needle exchange program within a prison system,
Oh
and
wow.
I learned a lot of cool things during that session. Learned how it benefited the inmates, learned how it benefited the officers as well who are patrolling. Just because, for the inmate's sake, if people are sneaking in needles or doing stuff like that, they're risking extending their sentence or
Right.
completely having their court date pushed back or
Yeah.
completely, ruining their whole situation that I got going. So by implementing a needle exchange already where they're allowed to have needles in there, like everything can be accounted for. They're gonna know exactly there should be 100 needles, 10 per pod or whatever it might be. But that
Right.
way people aren't having to, sell needles for like $5 like you said, people were
Right.
selling cigarettes for $5. They're not having to risk smuggling it in, getting caught with it, having their sentence extended or anything like that. And I thought that was really interesting just for like the sake of the inmates. Yeah, that needle exchange system in the prison was like really intriguing just because the inmates are not having to risk smuggling it in there, getting caught. And especially
Right.
from what the presenter was saying was it was a lot of the younger folks who are maybe first time, second time offenders who keep going in that
Right.
are bringing it in
Yeah.
and just ruining their own lives by doing that because they keep getting caught. Their sentence keeps getting extended. They're not offered parole or early release or anything
We'll
like
say that
that.
that's who it was in that facility as well. It was the younger people.
Yeah, so they
Yeah. The older people were just doing their time.
yeah, and they don't have to sell themselves, or they don't have to buy and waste money on that stuff where it could just prolong their whole time there in the prison system. And then for like the
Right.
officer's sake, he mentioned that they would have cases like harm reduction kits inside each of the cells that contain 2 needles and whatever they might need, and that it was always to be laid out in a specific area within the pod so that when the officer goes in to check, he can immediately locate it. So that way it protects him. That way, if he's searching, he doesn't have to worry about getting pricked by a needle. He doesn't have to worry about accidentally getting stabbed. He knows exactly where it's
Right.
at all times. And if they're missing, then he can go ahead and go from there, ask him, okay, why are they missing? What did you do with them? Who did you give them to? So it kind of also
Right.
has a safety aspect for the officers because they're not going into someone's room without a clue of what's in there and what can potentially like injure them or cause
Right.
infection, diseases spread. So
They could. I mean, if that's something that they wanted to do, how we have the red needle boxes, so you could do a clear needle box where once they got done using it, they could just drop it in the box and the officer wouldn't even have to touch the needle at all. But he could
exactly,
see
yeah.
that it was in there. You know.
Yeah. So I thought that was really interesting just because
Yeah.
not only one, it helps benefit the officers, keeping them safe, and then
Right.
also it helps the inmates so they don't have to risk getting caught, so they don't have to fall into this trap of, oh, I need to make money, I need to sell this while I'm in here because how else am I going to survive type of
Mhm.
situation.
Right.
So I thought that was pretty interesting what I learned there. And I'm trying to like break down that session because I took notes, I took pictures of everything. That way, I can build up a report and, hopefully present it with the rest of my team, see what we all think and see how we can either get this implemented or do some sort or something similar to it, because I think it is pretty important, especially for people who are maybe first timers or keep going in repeatedly,
Yeah.
telling them like you don't need to be smuggling stuff in, you don't need to be risking your sentence, you don't need to risk everything you got going for you right now for cash. So
Right.
I thought it was really cool. But yeah, you were saying you were only there for 5 months
Yeah.
in that facility, and then from there, where did you end up getting
They
transferred to?
they transferred me. They chose me to go to Aliceville, Alabama, to open up a new medium women's facility. So there was a FCI, and then the farm, as we call it, on the outside. So there was all kinds of people chosen from all over the United States to come and work to get that place up and running. So and from the day we got there, I will say that I bucked it. I was peeved that they were sending me farther away from my family, because I was told that I could pick what facility I wanted to go to, and I wanted to go to California because I thought it'd be closer to my family, and they chose to send me there and then off to Alabama, right? And so I was mad at first, but once I got there and I saw the place and I ate the food, can I tell you, Greenville's food was disgusting, but Aliceville, because the FCI wasn't open yet, and it was just us, it was 350 women working to get that place together. We had the best food. I mean, the veggies were frozen or fresh. The meat we had the food was so incredible. I was like in heaven. I couldn't believe it. I was like, man, I'm so glad they sent me here because I can actually eat again. And I didn't care for the fact that it was an open pod, so there's like 150 bunk beds, so there was or was it 75 in each side, something. Anyways, we had all of these. It was like an open pod, and then you had two TV rooms, and then you had a workout room, and then you had a common area, but it was all open, and there was windows in between both pods, so you got to see what everyone was doing all the time. And that was kind of, I mean, so if people were up all night talking and chatting, and oh my gosh, can I tell you, it took a minute to get used to being in such a noisy environment all the time. So I didn't care for that, but after a while, I got used to it. I got earplugs from the from the lawn people, because we weren't allowed to have earplugs. But
Mhm.
that was the bad thing. I went and did. I got those things and stuck them in my ears, and I put my stocking cap over my eyes so I wouldn't see the light, and that's how I slept every night for 3.5 years while I was in there.
And that's where you spent the rest of your sentence, was at
The
that
rest of my
facility?
time, yeah, yeah,
Okay. So during
yeah,
during then also, through the entire process between your court date to when you got sentenced to kind of ending your full term, were you ever provided with any services, any programs, any like
yeah.
educational resources
Hmm.
for you for life outside
Yeah,
once you got to that stage?
yeah. So the one mandatory thing that I was required to do while incarcerated was go to treatment. So I had to be involved in a treatment program, and I think it was 3 to 6 months long. And I ended up doing that in Aliceville. So there was a counselor, a drug and alcohol counselor, that came and did group sessions with us, and we had several different books that we had to write in. And I really enjoyed how it was presented, because it just made it easy to do 12 steps, in this process without looking at each number of a step, right? They asked really great questions like, what do you feel led you to this person and this thing or having, so it really made me have to dive into what Sheila was really all about. I had to get brutally honest with myself, and I had never ever done that in my entire life. And so it wasn't just the treatment program that did that. Every single program that the federal government provides for inmates to better themselves while incarcerated is stimulated that way by questions and your view on your life and how that applies, how that question was then and how it could be different. So I did so many programs. Every single one they offered, I did. So there was like an 8-week program on how to set responsible goals. There was a spiritual recovery program, which was just like treatment, but it had to do with spiritual based lifestyle. And that asked the same kind of stuff, basically. How can you move from somebody who was spiritually dead to somebody who is alive and rededicating their lives to the Lord, right? So I got involved in the church that was there. I also was given an opportunity to take through the church to take certificate classes from Birmingham, from Sanford University, and they were actual university certificates. They had nothing to do with the prison, but so they brought teachers in, and we got to. I got 4 certificates from that program. I wasn't there long enough to get all 10, but I took biblical counseling and all kinds of really amazing things. I never in my life would have ever thought that my name would be on a university certificate, let alone anything that had to do with God. Biblical counseling, right? Or the New Testament, or, seriously, me.
Yeah.
But I did it and I thrived, and I got involved in like exercising, and I lost over 50 pounds, and I started feeling super healthy about myself. I was eating right. And I was even teaching like classes like crocheting and stuff like that, because I just got into this like creative mindset where I had to stay busy, right? If I wasn't outside doing work on one of the programs I was doing, then I had to stay busy, because my mind would just, it would just get the best of me. I could talk myself into or talk myself out of absolutely anything, because the opportunity is there. It truly is. Every single program is available to help change the way that I thought, to know who I am and why I thought and behaved the way I did. I chose to stop the insanity. I chose to become teachable, because I don't know anything, and if you choose to do that, then you can come out a completely different person. If you don't, you get to go back.
Yeah, absolutely. Just no, it's like a great message to to share with everyone, especially those who are afraid
Yeah.
of what might happen or what might come to them. Because it brings up a particular instance to me. Is I was out the other day, I met with one of my community members. I meet regularly just to say hi. If anything, I'll just drop by and say hi, how's he doing, make sure he's okay, make sure he's not like thirsty or dehydrated, and then I'm on. But while I was there, a gentleman came up, and he had never seen me before. Granted, I'm kind of a new face in their kind of like circle of people. So I could tell that he was like always just looking me up and down. I never felt uncomfortable with it, but I could tell that he was kind of bothered by my presence there. And then he ended up leaving. And then I found out that he just didn't like me because I'm a new face. he felt really uncomfortable. He was running all these things in his head. And he's like, yeah, he's just overanalyzing you. He's
Yeah.
thinking the worst of you because he hasn't met you, because he hasn't seen you. If you give him time, he'll open up. You'll get
Yeah.
to know him. You'll get to talk with him.
Yeah. You got to earn that trust. You don't just
Exactly.
get it. Yeah.
Exactly. So that's what I've been trying to do. And that's like what's been really helpful for me, and building those relationships with them, and getting them one step closer to either coming into my office, or at least participating in one of the programs that we offer that they might actually need and utilize in their own lives. So
Right.
yeah, no, it's been great. Well, I really do appreciate talking with you and you sharing your experience. I don't want to keep you on for too long.
Yeah.
Because I'm pretty sure you mentioned that today was your day off, and I kind of have you here.
It's all good. No, it's all good. I don't start my new position until Tuesday, so I'm good.
Okay, awesome, awesome. Well, yeah, I just want to thank you again for sharing your experience,
Yeah.
sharing what you went through, and being yourself, and sharing that, because I know a lot of people it's difficult for them, or they don't want to relive that moment in time when they were incarcerated, or the person they were before. So
Right.
I really do
I
appreciate
have
that.
to I have to be completely open. My life is an open book. I've been given a gift, and to keep it a secret, it's a shame.
Yeah.
And it was
So
all for naught. It was
and
all for naught.
yeah. Well, and before we sign off, do you just kind of want to list off where you guys are located at, your COPES or your new
Yeah.
organization?
Yeah, so Cope's Peer Center is located in the big one in Pendleton is 200 Southeast Haley Avenue. It's at the John Murray Building, and it's on the first floor. We have several different places within Cope's within John Murray, but Suite 106 is the Peer Center where they can get food and services, coffee, watch some TV, work on a computer, do whatever they need to do. Second floor is Cope's outpatient treatment. They go to all the groups and stuff there. Third floor is Nurture Oregon, which is what Cope's does to help pregnant women who are still struggling with addiction, to help them through the process of having their child. And then we also have the Cope's Clinic, which is 715 Southwest Dorian. And that is a MAP program and clinic for health checks. And then we also have the office in Milton Freewater and the other office in Hermiston as well.
All righty. Well, awesome. And for anyone,
And my next job with PTC, it is a MAT program, and that is a clinical setting, and it's right across from the Walmart in Pendleton. So they help with Suboxone treatment and with methadone treatment and also counseling and group sessions to help people walk away from the street drugs so that they can taper down and get clean, because the purpose of a MAP program is to save lives, right? We're talking about harm reduction. To withdraw from alcohol and opioids can kill you. So, and it's an honor to be a part of either one of these programs, and the fact that they're both, and you guys too, as well as Yellow Hawk, the tribe here in Eastern Oregon. All four of us are all community partners, and we work together, and I think it's phenomenal. More community partners need to join up and work hand in hand to save the people who are struggling, and it's only getting bigger. It's a huge epidemic. So
yeah. So if anyone has any questions or concerns or wants to know more, feel free to visit any of the locations that Sheila just mentioned. You can also visit with us in Pendleton, the Dalles, Burns, or Ontario. Those are our 4 office locations right now in the moment. But yeah, if you have any questions, feel free to drop in, call us.
I do want to say, if I could, I forgot to mention that COPES also has a 24-hour emergency hotline, crisis line. So if anybody is thinking of suicide or struggling with addiction or any kind of abuse, they can call 541-612-2255 anytime, day or night. Someone will answer the phone. Someone will come help.
All righty. Well, thank you. Thank you for that.
Right.
And thank you for everyone listening in on the podcast. This has been Voices in Action, a podcast by Eastern Oregon Center for Independent Living. Thank you, everyone.
If you have any other questions, feel free to stop by at one of our offices in Burns, Hamilton, The Dalles, or Ontario, or visit us online at eocil.org.